It definitely inhabits our lives, and nothing quite captures the essence of competition like the Olympics do. Natalie, you're in dance. Anthony, you're in track and cross country, and Anne is in speech. All these activities have definitely changed our lives in some ways. Now imagine those being cut, pulling out from under your feet, and you're told you cannot compete at an excelled level. This is exactly what happened to wrestling, as it was cut from the 2020 Summer Olympic Games. They chose to cut this in many ways. First, we will talk about the problem that this has created and the harms associated with it. And then we will talk about the solution that must be made. Now, to get to the bare bones of it, the International Olympic Committee, or IOC, dropped wrestling because it did not get enough views. This was stated by Stephanie Myers in the article, "Myers Wrestling is an iconic Olympic sport and should not be axed," published in the Coloradian on February 14th, 2013. IOC chose to drop wrestling because it did not get enough views. It got close to 100,000 views. The modern pentathlon, only 30,000 views. And race walking, which maybe many of you might not have heard of, got 9,000 views. This is incredible to think because wrestling was not even shown on TV. The other two sports were. It was also dropped because they claim they want to modernize the Olympics. This was also stated by Stephanie Myers in the article, "Myers Wrestling is an iconic Olympic sport and should not be axed." They would like to modernize the Olympics because they want to get rid of traditional sports and bring in new, more popular sports around the world. Stated in the article, they should also drop swimming, track, running, throwing, many other traditional sports that we know and love today. This is a huge problem here and around the world. Quoted by Stephanie Myers in the article, "Myers Wrestling is an Olympic and iconic sport and should not be axed," 71 countries, or 1/3 of the world, competes in wrestling today. And here locally, 49 out of 50 states compete in wrestling. This is a huge amount, considering 1/3 of the world provide wrestling as an entertainment, and it's definitely their core sport, such as South Korea. Now, according to Stephen Wilson, in the article, "IOC drops wrestling from the 2020 Olympics," published on the ABC News Network on February 12, 2013, a total of 344 total competitors competed in the 2012 London Olympic Games. All these people have definitely had a way of life, and this is what they've known and grown to love ever since a young child. All of these people would be out of a job, out of a lifestyle, and would be devastated and crushed. There are many harms with cutting wrestling from the Olympics. One of the main things is that it would break traditions and one of the core values of the Olympics. This was stated by the Ancient Olympic Games Committee in the article First Olympia on Olympics.org on July 3rd, 2012. The first Olympics was held in 776 AD. The first three sports were running, throwing, and wrestling. Greco-Roman wrestling, to be a little bit more specific. Now, if you were to break this, you would break one of those core sports that founded the Olympics, that made the Olympics what it is today. It would destroy one of the main sports that make the Olympics what we know and love and what we watch on TV. Stephen Wilson, in the article, "IOC drops wrestling from the 2020 Olympics," stated that also wrestlers, and not only wrestlers, but their trainers, dietitians, physical therapists, and doctors would also join the unemployment rate here in the US and all around the world. Think about all of the international wrestlers and high school wrestlers here today. They would have to try to maybe convert to a different sport, find another job, but basically the main point is that they would join the unemployment rate that's already going up around the world today. Another harm with this is that high school participants would drop dramatically here in the US and in Europe. This was stated by John Sutton in the article, "Wrestling Community Vows to Keep Favorite Olympic Sport Communication Alive," published in the Tacoma News Tribune on February 16, 2013. There are a total of 300,000 high school participants in the US today. Factor in Canada, Latin America, Caribbean, and Mexico, and you have close to 500,000 wrestlers participating in the sport every year. Where are their dreams going to go? They all had dreams of winning a gold one day for their country, and now their hopes are going to be diminished. After college, what do they have to look forward to? I can't remember the last time I was glad someone walked to a gold for the US. Now that we just talked about some of the problems with this, let's talk about a solution that must be made. The IOC should reinstate wrestling by listening to the public and the petitions that have been signed. 250 petitions have been signed. Over 10 of them had 100,000 signatures. That is over 1 million people in 10 petitions signed that want wrestling back in the Olympics. This is a staggering amount and definitely has had many repercussions on the IOC. Also, the International Olympic Committee meets every 2 years. They meet every 2 years to discuss the fine points of the Olympics, such as where it should be held, what sports are going to be capped, what sports are going to go. It would not be that hard for them to put wrestling back in and take out another sport like the modern pentathlon or race walking. This is incredibly practical because it has been shown to be effective in the past. According to Lisa Cousins, on the article The Montgomery Bus Boycott in the Civil Rights Magazine Movement in 1955 and 1965, published on June 29, 1998, the African Americans helped win their right to ride the bus in the Montgomery Bus Boycott by helping to sign petitions and sway the vote. This is exactly what the IOC needs to do and what the public needs to do to get wrestling back in the Olympics. They've already been doing it and they need to keep it up. This is also incredibly practical because 1/3 of the world competes in wrestling. It's not like they're scrambling for many people to, compete in the sport, especially when it's being held and when it's being played. Unlike race walking, which had 16 countries represented, compared to wrestling 71, it doesn't make much sense. This is also desirable for everyone in this room. You can learn much more about a traditional sport just by watching and listening to what the announcers have to say on TV. This is also desirable because maybe your future children would want to join this sport and want to have dreams of winning a gold one day. This is also desirable because we can help to get wrapped up in another USA sports team. I can't remember the last time I was watching rhythmic dancing was cheering on the USA. Rhythmic gymnastics, excuse me. And we have just got done talking about the harms and the problems associated with this. We've also talked about a solution, and to reiterate, we must reinstate men and women's wrestling in the 2020 Olympic Games. Now, you may not think much of this right now, but I bet your bottom dollar that you'll hear something about it when the 2020 Summer Olympic Games begin.